episode of Secured Out Podcast. Always, I'm your host, Danny Caballero. With me today is Dan Joseph. Now, I always advocate and talk about how the solutions to our veteran and active duty service member mental health issues has to come from us. It has to come within the community. There are a lot of people helping. There are a lot of nonprofits out there, but if we don't lace up our boots and get to work, we're going to lose more brothers and sisters. Now, Dan, thank you for being here. You're somebody that has actually picked up the cause and started doing work. So I'm going to let you take it from here. Give us an introduction. Talk about what you've been doing. But then I want to bring it back to the origin story, man. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, man. Stoked to be here, dude. Thank you for having me. Yeah, so I'm super weird.
As we
That
all
that
are.
that came out during jujitsu. Definitely had my own issues. Yeah, I was a platoon leader in the Army for 3.5 years, combat engineer, non-deployable unit. So I didn't deploy. I worked with a lot of guys who did, and they kind of coached me up on some stuff. And so I worked with some guys. Crazy stories, bro. One of my best friends, Austin, he's a badass, like SWAT dude, and he does a lot of cool things. He lost 13 guys from his unit to suicide. 13,
Yeah.
like double digit numbers, which I can't even fathom. And so I'm working alongside this dude. I'm loving this dude like he's my brother. We're getting along, and I find the story out about him. It's just normal to him. And he
Yeah.
could have been another dude on that list. And we're still in touch to this day just to make sure he doesn't, you know, right, ever get that to that point. But he opened my eyes to the fact that there's some struggles, man, that like guys are not talking about. I had one of my soldiers in my platoon, my last week as PL, let me know that he basically survived a suicide attempt like that week. He had a plan, he executed it, it didn't work out, but I called his mom, let her know that we were getting him help for some stuff he was going through. Uh, and that shook me, man, because I had a lot of guys telling me like, "Hey, dude, don't take it as a small thing that your soldier is alive, because we know a lot of guys who aren't."
Yeah.
And there was conversations among people like left and right, dude, about service members that don't deserve to be looked at. It's a cry for help. Don't listen to them. They're just jerking your leash, trying to get a reaction out of you. All this stuff, and then you find out that guy is actively contemplating suicide, like not
Yeah.
even just passively, but straight up self-medicating on alcohol. So I did my self-medication before I joined the army, but in my 20s. That's why I didn't join. I was in the party scene. I was in Southern California. I went to a school with a bunch of rich kids. I grew up, not having money. And so when I was around them, partying was the great equalizer. If you could party, dude, if you knew the guy who had, the connection for whatever they wanted, when it came to drugs or whatever, it was just this awesome social network of like, hey, bro, you're invited to the club, jump in my ride, like, let's go. So the guys and girls, it was super fun. But a lot of my friends were in Afghanistan and in Iraq, they were deploying and doing stuff. And I mean, I met them later after my party scene. But long story short, jujitsu was kind of helped me as I gained sobriety, as I stopped self-medicating, as I went to therapy. Jujitsu brought out a lot of the demons, and the mats don't lie. And so I got choked out and pummeled by some really good dudes. I got mentored by some men that I needed in my life. I didn't have strong male role models, and then on the mats, they kind of choked my ego out. They taught me what it means to be humble and not be loud. And then I joined the army because around that same time I started rolling with a bunch of dudes. I met a bunch of uh, cool guys, Navy SEALs that are out here, some MARSOC dudes, guys that just like blew my mind because they were so physical. They weren't on drugs. They weren't doing stuff that was like shady and unhealthy. They slept well. They rested. They pushed themselves. They broke themselves off in workouts, and then they deployed and went and protected people that they didn't have to. And that really impacted me. So I joined the army, and then a little late, I joined at 32, but I had a lens and a perspective that some people don't have, and that applied to mental health, man. When I saw some dude struggling, I'm like, hey, man, you're self-medicating like I used to. Like, there's something similar there, and I didn't expect it. And then I'll end with like my army dad, who I'm still in touch with. He's a NCO who like he damn near punched an officer who was trying to bully me, which was cool. He's like, "Sir, I'll step out of this Humvee right now. We'll handle this like men." And I'm like, "Dude, be my dad," you know? And he's a good guy. And he told me about some stories that happened in Iraq in the first wave and stuff. He was there through some pretty gnarly missions. And yeah, it makes me emotional to think about it. But he had some leadership that wasn't necessarily the best, and then he also lost a lot of dudes. But he basically told me like, look, man, you know, if you're going to lead soldiers, um, it's okay to be close to them. It's okay to listen to them. It's okay to, you know, he's like, look, leaders, it's not the guys who are loud in war. It's not the guys who are chest beating. Rank doesn't do anything to to make you a killer or to make you a protector. He's like, there's some stuff that I saw where like the dorkiest kid ended up grabbing his weapon and just laying hate on the enemy, you know? Um, and the big guys, one dude was just balled up in the back of an AMRAP crying, you know? And so he told me, he said, look, there's a lot that we don't talk about in the military. There's a lot of wisdom, man, that to be had. And so I shared some of his story, but he definitely struggled with depression and suicide and things like that as well. And he shared some stuff with me he's never told anyone from war, you know, stuff his family didn't know. And that was deep, dude. That's like an honor, huge honor like that. I was given that ability to see those things. You know, these guys, they want to help other people, but they don't want to talk about it. They don't want the spotlight. They don't want
Bingo.
people to say, you're a hero. You know, like you got shot, you got blown up, you faced the enemy, you know, did all this stuff and it's all like glamorized, but that's not how they see it, man. That's not, and they really opened my eyes to that. And it's heavy and, but it's real. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I want to circle back to what you just said. The most common thread that I've seen with leadership and guys that struggle with mental health issues is wearing that mask. You want to portray that you're fine. You're not doing nothing's wrong. You just want to put that, you want to project that image that you're 100% solid, no kinks in your armor. But then you advocate like hell for every single one of your guys that's struggling. You're the champion trying to get guys into treatment. You're telling them to do this. Hey, you need to go here. You need to do that. But then you won't take the time for yourself because you feel it's selfish or you feel it's wrong because you're a leader. You feel that it'll give off the wrong idea, but you're suffering. You're literally suffering, and you're going home, and your family's breaking down, and you don't talk about anything. But man, you'll champion all day for everybody else, and you'll tell people within your own organization. I did myself too. I think I was actively looking to do something horrible, and I was attending a peer-to-peer army course, sitting down listening to a counselor talking about how you can be a better sensor, how you can be a better uh, advocate for others. And I'm sitting there dealing with my own struggles and lying. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, we need to talk about this. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
We do it because we're so scared to admit that we can't go anymore and we need help.
Mm.
It's easier for us to work and focus on somebody else. And I see that like exactly what you're tapping into. But the other thing that's great that you're a connector, you're a sensor. Guys felt comfortable sharing with you. And I think that may have led into what you're doing now, or being able to understand that, like, wow, I may not have the combat experience, but that doesn't matter. Somebody is confiding in me. What do I do with this now? And that's what's intriguing. That's that ability of understanding that, okay, I may not have a frame of reference yet for what this individual's going through, but that doesn't or should stop or shouldn't stop me from trying to help. And that's what more people need to understand. You may not have the combat experience, but there are things we can do. We can gather the resources. We can dive into studies. We can use tools that we use for our own coping and try to advocate. And we're seeing that. And you're one of the many veterans and service members that are talking about jujitsu and why it's important. And I would equate it's just like I practice and preach all day about mindfulness. And there's a power in that stillness that you tap into. You ain't going nowhere when you got a dude that's pinning you down on the mat. Focus, be present. How are you going to work yourself out of this problem? And I think that relates and translates to our mental health issues. And that's why so many guys are able to realize, like, wow, I'm not able to run away in this moment. I can't fake this. I got to sit here, be still, be present right now, and think my way through this problem. And I've seen a lot of guys have success with jiu-jitsu. But when did you get involved with it?
Um, man, like 5 years ago, my buddy Tim, he came down to San Diego and met with Jeff Glover and Dean Lister. They were my coaches for a bit. I train at Jocko Willing's gym, which is a huge blessing, man. It's so cool to be around these warriors, you know. But Tim showed up. He got mentored on opening a gym, and then I started sobering up. I realized, I didn't have many friends who weren't on on various
Yeah.
substances, right? And I'm just like, oh shoot. So then I started reconnecting with high school friends. I started going back to church and stuff, and like thinking about like, dude, what do I do now? Like, this is, who am I like without
Yeah.
all this stuff, right? And so I started feeling this like subconscious pull towards jujitsu. I was actually at a Starbucks, like working. I used to run my own little like, business. And this guy came in high on drugs. He picked up a metal stool and was about to hit the manager with it. And
Oh,
it was me
shit.
and a bunch of like, I was the only male in Starbucks. There's a bunch of women. When I was next to a lady, she must have been like 60 or 70. She like looked at me like the obvious primal look of, you're a dude, handle this, right? And I'm like, I look at her, I'm like, I don't know what to do with my hands. Like, I could use my face to like buffer the chair, but other than that, and I remember feeling like a complete failure of a dude. I'm just like, wow. She
Yeah.
straight up looked at me like, are you going to help this manager? He's going to get murdered. And the guy ended up, luckily, he threw the chair at a wall and just bounced, got in his vehicle and swerved off like high out of his mind. So I
Dude,
hit up Tim.
everybody complains about masculinity till there's a fucking crazy dude that's about to
Yup.
fucking smash your skull in with a fucking chair.
Bro, and that poor manager. Anyway, so yeah, bro, that's exactly right. I mean, they all looked at me like, dude, you're a freaking guy. Grandma's not gonna grab a stool. Like, just grab something. So I hit up my buddy. I'm like, hey man, I heard about this thing called jujitsu, and I heard you do it. And he's like, dude, I own a gym. Like, when are you coming home? My dad, he passed away, but he was dying of heart disease for a long time. So anyway, I had to drive up home and see him. And I don't get along with my family. That's when my issues really come out. So I was like, hey, yeah, let me come to your gym and get, learn some jujitsu, right? Learn how to roll. So he introduced me to it after hours. He opened the gym up. It was just me and him. And it was weird, I'm like, he's wrapped up in between my legs. My guard is closed on him, and he's telling me a move, but he's not telling me to like release my guard. My guard's on him, which isn't weird.
Yeah.
But when you're first doing jujitsu and you're crotch to crotch with the dude, and you're making a direct eye contact as he's telling you stuff, it's like, bro, is this like socially awkward? Should I stop? Do you want me to drop? But he was like so cool about it. He's like, dude, what? No, like we're just talking. And and then all of a sudden it's just this tribal connection, this family connection, and um he introduced me to the other brothers on the mats, and we just started rolling and getting after it. And the adrenaline high for like a day afterwards. I remember texting him, I'm like, I don't know what's going on, dude, but like I'm revving right now. I'm like, something is happening. I have a massive pump, dude. And he's like, yeah, welcome to surfers call it catching the stoke. So he's like, welcome to like, the adrenaline rush of jujitsu, right?
Yeah.
Because you're trusting someone, a complete stranger, with your primal, response
Yeah.
mechanisms, right? Your brainstem, your jugular, your carotid artery. I mean, there's massive circuitry in our brain that says do not, threaten these circuits of life in our bodies, and you're letting someone just crank on them and grind on and just like smash them. And that's love, dude. That's love. Um, and I experienced a connection with myself that I never had before. It helped my relationship with my father. All my anger issues got out in
Hmm.
jujitsu. I could finally look my dad in the eyes and not feel like I wanted to, knock him out and not feel threatened by him. It's just took all the animosity out of my heart. And yeah, dude. And it kept me sober, and uh, it was good, dude. It was really good.
Now, when you, 'cause I think, and if I remember right, you actually did a study on,
Yeah.
yeah, let's go into that. Cause that is, I mean, the information is out there, but I want to hear your breakdown on how you studied it and were able to like see measurable improvement through
Yes.
just being able to get on the mat.
Mhm. Yeah, man. So when I was a platoon leader, COVID was knocking things down like pipelines, Ranger school, airborne aerosol, all that stuff, sapper school, everything was shut down. And because I wanted to go to dive school and try to be an army diver. And anyway, so that was a huge bummer, dude. And so I was like, okay, what do I do to not drink, to not get back into a bad lifestyle? And I thought, because again, I've been part of recovery groups, and it's like you got to have a plan. You can't be
Yeah.
passive about recovery. And so I was like, okay, I got to redeem my time somehow. So I was like, I'm not going to drink a drop. So I didn't for like 2 years. And I decided to get a master's online. And a part of it was, hey, go do a research study or plan a research study.
Yeah.
So it was a master's in psychology. And then I ended up doing basically like a doctorate type thesis because I interviewed some PhDs who are jujitsu black belts, and they were like, "Are you doing this for your doctorate?" I'm like, "No, I'm doing it for a master's." They're like, "I did less work for a doctorate. Like, you should definitely run this by an organization, an ethics board, an ethics review board, to get it like retroactively blessed off to be a PhD." But anyway, I didn't do that. But so I have to give a shout out to Jocko because I asked him permission to talk to some black belts about mental health, about anxiety and breath
Yeah.
control because it was helping me. And he was like, "Look, if you get buy-in from these guys, you have my permission to talk to them." So it was really cool. And the black belt community, man, it's a tribe, right? It's a brotherhood where these guys have known each other for decades, and like you piss one of them off, you're blacklisted. You know what I mean? And so I went up to one of them. I went up to my coach and asked him if he'd participate, and he said yes. He'd like, given thought, right? So I talked to him, and then with his permission, like he went and reached out to two black belts, right? And they reached out to two black belts, and then all of a sudden, these guys, I got to interview 32 of them about their fight flight response, threat detection, how they perceive a threat, how they appraise a threat, what their reframe capacity is like when they're under attack. um, what do they do with their diaphragm? How do they breathe? How do they calm themselves? What things bring them anxiety? So I actually put all this into a book that I just released. It's called Black Belt Mindset, but it helped me because these guys helped save my life in a big way. You know what I mean? And just being
Yeah.
around them, just watching them, observing them. I mean, you see these guys, right? Some of them are giants, like
Yeah.
Jocko, like Dean. Some guys are small and skinny, but they can thread those rear naked chokes. They can go after these attacks like surgically, right? But you see these guys explosive on the mats, but then super zen in the middle of their role, right? So I call it throttling the violence. They can spike it when they need to and just absolutely peak at max output, at max capacity, and then within a millisecond, turn it back down, and then it's four-dimensional chess, right? They're
Yeah.
baiting moves.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Throttling back and forth between gas and brake, that's like a constant thing that you fall back on and you learn going through so many courses and train ups and soft. Like that is a constant thing. And you don't hear about it. And I guess it makes sense why you don't hear about it in normal applications in the civilian world, but in combat sports, it comes right back. So it's like you never hear about it, or people try to put it in that frame of like performance at work for like performance enhancing in a office setting, and it just doesn't. It never to me makes any sense. Like, but when you think about it, going to a combat sport, it's the same muscles, man. It's like that makes sense to me. Like fuck yeah, that's no wonder fucking so many dudes are going after it. Like
What's
that
cool,
is a
bro, is it
huge
translates
thing.
off the mats. That's what they teach us, and that's why, like, I love these men. Because when I mean that, like, I love them like my dad or a brother because they tell me like, hey, dude, everything I'm teaching you right now on the mats, it translates to traffic, to your relationships, to work, to everything. They're like, look
Yeah.
at the philosophy of how we fight. You don't bring your ego. You bring your ego, we're going
Yep.
to grind you into dust. You're humble, we're going to teach you humbly. Whatever violence you throw at me, I'm throwing right back at you and even more. Right. And so they say, like, think about the angles, think about your approach, think about your breath. Are you in your prefrontal cortex thinking complex thoughts? Or are you in your limbic mind acting like a friggin' animal trying to survive? Right. A
Yeah.
scarcity mindset versus abundance. And one of our coaches, he works with soft guys. He's an awesome, very humble black belt, amazing man. And he always tells us there's no such thing as a bad position in jujitsu, in life, never. It's all about the angles, all about your approach. Never a bad position. Because, we'd be spazzing and freaking out as white belts, like, oh my gosh, like, don't do that. Like, oh, what are you trying to build? And he's like, hey, chill out, dude. You're seeing this as a negative. It's not a negative. It's a corridor to a whole tree branch of decisions for other options. Once you open your mind like that, bro, you come out of the matrix. You look at society like everybody's stupid. Like, why are you such a dick on the road? Why are you so mean about something? That's not an issue. Like, chill out. And I'm talking to myself. It's like, stop being threatened by this stupid microscopic little variable and look at
Yep.
all the other amazing variables that I do have control over. And, Jocko always talks about ownership, right?
Yeah.
And that's what these black belts did for me, but tactically and kinesthetically. Like Dean
Yeah.
always says that. He always talks about the kinesthetic learning approach to jujitsu, meaning you put your hands on someone and you break them. That's how you learn, right? I mean, you don't actually injure them, but the concept is it's hands-on learning. And I need that, dude. My monkey brain, my like spastic way of life, I need a black belt to just pin me and say, remember to breathe. I'm going to smash you, but you're going to breathe, okay? And I'm like, Roger, okay, yes, now I remember. So, anyway,
The our culture's been sold this idea that we have to be constantly in comfort, and that when you are met with an obstacle, you need to become a victim, or you need to find a way to find somebody to remove it for you. And what you just said is absolutely correct. Uh, no matter what cards you're dealt with, you don't have to look at them and say, "Oh, I'm fucked. There's no way I can win out of this." Like, no. Thank you for obstacles. Thank you for closed doors. As veterans, and this speaks to transition too. Another thing that I'm really passionate to talk to you guys and gals about. Like, we should not expect society to cater to us simply because we serve. There are so many doors that are going to be closed or not available to you. Find your way. And that relates exactly what you're talking about with practicing that in a combat sport like jiu-jitsu. I'm going to fucking pin you down. I'm going to put so much pressure on you. You're not going to enjoy it. You're not going to feel comfortable, but you're going to figure it out. You're going to be mindful in that moment. You're going to be present and fully focused and being still. It's one of the things that's really off-putting to a lot of people about mindfulness. Like, well, it's not cool. It's not sexy. Well, you can get it in several different ways. I highly believe that if you're not taking, or meditation and mindfulness isn't your thing, being still in that avenue and that approach, go do it in jiu-jitsu. Go do it in a combat sport, because you'll find it there as well. Like, we have to get back into the idea of like, okay, we want hardships. We want to be able to have obstacles in life. That's what makes us better. The fucking Q course isn't better when it gets fucking watered down, or they make it easy, or they make it an online fucking course where you get a certificate. Going through buds is never going to be easy. They're never going to water it down and make it easy. Same with Marsoc selection. You want things to be hard. You want things to be difficult. You want there to be discomfort. That's where you learn. That's where you develop the resilience. But man, like, if we don't embrace that and try to talk about that, we're never going to be able to integrate back into society that really thrives. Like, we're seeing a lot of uh, that victim mentality that's become like a cancer in our everyday life, man. You get people that find one obstacle and they're like, oh fuck, I can't do it. Life's over. I can't get the job or the opportunity I want. Everything's being blocked. It's like, no, find a new way, find a new approach.
I will say one thing it's a bit nuanced, and this is where something like speaking to the version of myself before where I'm at right now. I got to say this, dude. When it comes to exposure therapy, especially for combat veterans, because I work
Yeah.
again with these brothers, right? So I saw what happens when they bring something up, something small about a memory. It seems small to them in the vast scheme of all the bloodshed that they were a part of, man. Because like again, going back to like my army dad, he brought up something, and then he had like 3 days of a hangover from sharing it. 3 days,
Yeah.
man, of feeling like the flu because he told me about a memory that he hasn't talked about since Iraq. And so I have to say, if somebody, depending on the trauma, depending on the issues that we have to find ways of, again, throttling the exposure therapy that we go through. So for me in jujitsu, I started getting panic attacks because I started doing jujitsu and meditating at the same time. and a lot of stuff came up because I had some other stuff that happened to
Yeah.
me that just came like skyrocketing up. So um, when people are avoidant, when we display avoidant behavior, and again, like going into that like that victim mindset of like, oh, woe is me, it's a big bad world, and
Yeah.
therefore I'm just going to stay in because a bear could eat me if I go outside. That is hypervigilance that's created by the mind because it doesn't want to go back to a bad place, right? But that bad place doesn't exist right now. It existed in the past, but our brain can't tell that. Our brain doesn't work in past, present, future. It works with just like this threat is all existing
Yep.
at all times. It's omnipresent. So it's super important to find healthy people around you and straight up tell them, like, I had to tell this to my coaches, to some guys that not everybody, man, I had to be selective. Some guys where I have to tell them like I'm going to get weird on the mats. I'm going to forget to breathe. I'm going to go into the freeze response. Would you help me with that? And because
Yeah.
I met guys in recovery groups that were total badasses who never shamed therapy or counseling. They took the stigma out of it. And they opened my mind to the fact that, like, hey, if I'm willing to talk about this, if I lay down my pride and ask another dude for help at the risk of getting kicked in the balls and being told that I'm like a complete coward or whatever it is, because you have to risk that, there's going to be some dudes that stand up next to you like, hey, dude, I got you, man. Like, anytime you need me, you let me know and I'll roll with you, I'll spar with you, or I'll sit there and chat with you about what's going on. Um, and then you don't do it in like a way where you just into this echo chamber of like everything sucks and negativity. It's like
Yes.
you put hands on it and you grapple with it, figuratively and literally until you overcome it. And it sucks in
Dude,
the meantime, dude. You got to cry, you got to grieve, you got
but what you just said right there, that vulnerability,
it's rough.
being willing to be vulnerable with the right people in the right setting, that is a powerful fucking tool. And that I say it all the time. Uh Again, the shout out. This isn't knowledge that I created on my own. I got this from Brene Brown, and it's the truth. When you sit around with individuals that are positive male figures, strong masculine leaders, and you are able to share, hey man, this is what I'm going through. Like, I kind of need to vent and talk. Like the response you get when you're open and vulnerable, and it's
Mm,
scary. It's a scary, like I know you feel that same fear, but then when it's met with reassurance and that strength of a brother that's got your back, like you're in a firefight, it's one of the greatest feelings ever, man.
mm,
Because that's how you work through things. That's mentorship.
totally.
That's true connection, and that's what we need as men. Uh, and not to not address not women don't need the same thing, but it's very impactful for men because as men we're told from an early age, I don't want to hear about your feelings. I don't want to hear about what you're really going through. Keep
Hmm.
that shit to yourself because I got too much in my own fucking backyard to deal with.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is fucking powerful, man. That's a powerful testament, and thank you for sharing that, man.
Yeah, dude, you got it, bro. Absolutely. I hope it helps people, man. Yeah, and the suicide rate, if you look at the CDC, like .gov, I know it's kind of like
Yeah.
questionable at this point, but they do
It's
have
so
got to
so
put a
fucking
disclaimer out.
questionable.
But there's a when they talk about male suicide rate and male self harm, it's like tremendously higher than females because women are more
Yeah.
emotionally intelligent than men. I mean, any dude
Yes.
who's like married knows that like the wife, if it wasn't for the wife, like the kids would be dead. Because guys just toss them into the fan or like punch them or like men are just different. And so, uh,
Don't yeet the kids.
dude, yeah, I mean, but you're like, hey, I want to make it like a warrior, right? But then it's like the Spartan way of like selective breeding, I guess. But um, what's important is that guys, we don't have emotional vocabulary that's readily available. When I talk to these, that last generation of warriors who, again, were in Iraq and Afghanistan from the kickoff, they would tell me that, yeah, we're broken, we're busted up, but we can't say that. Their op tempo was so high, their deployment tempo was
Yeah.
back to back. They'd have, stop loss and all that stuff. Like they're getting out of the military. It's like, yeah, dude, no, you're shipping out back to Afghanistan. Like grab
Yeah.
your Kevlar. And so they didn't have time to be injured. They didn't have time to talk about feelings. And um, I was, yeah, I just wrote another little book. It's free on my website for people. We can talk about it later where to find it, but um it's about emotional vocabulary for dudes, but a Gold Star mom, Tammy, she wrote the foreword to it, and it's dedicated to her son, Jeremiah, and he died after Afghanistan. It's a pretty tragic story, but you can, it's on the news and stuff. People can look it up. But he the struggle that he had was what so many soldiers had. It's like not being able to talk about what they experienced, and then that shame just builds inside,
Yeah.
and anything that we repress, it amplifies. I mean, it'll explode, man. Like you'll need EOD to get that feeling out of you at some point. And
Yeah.
guys don't know that until it's too late, unfortunately. And so, we're taught in a society where it's stoic to repress stuff, and stoicism has its value for sure. But again, it's everything within balance. There's
Yeah.
moments you are supposed to. It's not one size fits all, and that's it. And a lot of guys kind of we want to simplify it in that way. Um, but
And
the
we,
more
we have to
knowledge we
really
have,
redirect that idea too, that stoicism and learning about the great thinkers means that we have to have this complete lack of emotion,
right?
and it's not like two things can occur at the same place. You can study and be a great thinker and acknowledge emotions. It's a powerful thing to be emotionally intelligent. I talk about it often. I carried that feelings wheel all the fucking time
Yep.
right after I got out of my treatment center. And I would go through it because we don't get that. We don't get that knowledge as kids. Nobody talks about it in school. I have yet to meet somebody within the soft community that I served with that came from this robust background that had everything handed to them as far as the educational and foundational knowledge for emotions and how to deal with complex things such as PTSD and moral injury. We just don't have that. And when somebody teaches that to us, when you find it in books, when you find it from these great authors and providers, run with it. Don't be scared. Don't run away from your feelings and emotions. Embrace it. It's a powerful gift. It's empowering to understand that you're more than just anger and happiness. There's a
Yeah,
lot
and
of
I
in
would say,
between.
these black belts in jujitsu teach us that in a big way. And the reason why, because they manage their emotions in real time, right?
Yeah.
Um, and with the humility, because it's not like they don't acknowledge a threat. They know when something's threatening them, right? They know how to
Yeah.
respond intelligently with that. And if they go to a bar and some guy's being an a-hole, they can easily break and shatter every bone in that guy's body. I mean, subconsciously,
Yep.
just straight up through muscle memory, they can rip the guy's shoulder socket out. Arm bar, they could break anything from wrist to neck. They don't, but they know that they can. And knowing that keeps them calm because they know they can respond if necessary, all the way up to lethal threat or lethal response. They know they can respectfully understand the situation, be situationally aware, and not overreact. And they live that out by example. And so I needed to see that. I needed to actually witness it in real time. And there were days where something would happen that would be a trigger. I know that's a buzzword. And I'd look in the mirror later that night or whatever it is, and I'm just like, dude, I didn't react like an idiot today. That's that's new. Like this
Yeah.
is something different. And it's because of them, because they started rubbing off on me and helping me learn how to mitigate my own emotional reactivity. So I have to acknowledge, like, this pissed me off. I'm angry right now. And I'm going to take a deep breath. And if it escalates, I know how to respond, but I know how to de escalate it in my own
Yeah.
mind. Right. And, I mean, this is such a complex issue. And especially if you look at the neurocircuitry involved and how the brain works, because that's where I like to lead guys is like, let's talk about the neurocircuits of the brain. We don't have to talk about fluffy little emotions. Let's talk about the feeling. Let's talk about the hard wiring, the
Yeah.
electric circuitry of the mind, because it's the most complex calculating mechanism in our universe. I mean, more than any computer, more until we have like quantum
Quantum
computing
computing.
mechanisms, our brain, and we don't have a user manual for it. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so that's why it's so critical that we help coach one another. Because if we don't, look what happens with guys without role models. I mean, look at gang violence, look at
Dude,
drug use, look at
absolutely.
it's what happens. I mean, I got involved in some bad stuff. It came out in a polygraph recently, but I owned all of it. But
Don't worry. All of us have that. You're
bro,
in good company.
they asked me. I'm not supposed to talk too much about this, but they did ask me, like, let's talk about the reasoning why you did that stuff. And I said, look, I didn't have a male role model I was looking up to. So when one guy stepped into my life and said, "I want you to do this and this for me," I was like, "Okay,
Yeah,
cool. Like it's illegal, but I mean, I want your validation. I want affirmation from you, right?"
dude, that is so
Um,
true. And
and
we as
yeah,
young men, as boys, we need guidance. We need father figures. That is one of the things that I have dove into and studying and looking from my own frame of reference, my own lived experience, understanding that void and how that shaped my life. We have to acknowledge that one of the primary things a young boy needs is a father figure. Not having that father figure leads you down a difficult road in life until you're
yeah,
able to go through the proper like for me in my journey, I needed to go through so much to truly understand what not having that father figure really like led to.
mhm,
But nobody wants to talk about it because it's deeply shameful. It is.
totally,
It is
yeah,
a
it's
painful
heavy.
thing to talk to and engage with. But so many of us are holding on to that. We're holding on to that pain like we did something wrong because it's so shameful and there's so much guilt behind that. But no, like it nobody wants to acknowledge it. Nobody wants to talk about it. We constantly villainize masculinity, role models, but men, young boys need that. We don't have a rites of passage in the American culture. We don't. What are boys supposed to do? Well, we used to have the Boy Scouts. We used to have at least that. But if a boy doesn't have a father to take him through those roles and transition periods, what does he have?
Mhm,
He has social media. He has maybe collegiate or maybe high school and collegiate sports. But you get to college and what are you doing? You're drinking and you're going out and you're chasing women. And then you get a degree. Is that a transition period?
mhm,
No, it leads to a generation of men that feel lost. And if they didn't get into the military, we've seen people that prey upon that too. There are so many really shady individuals out there right now. I'm not even going to name the organizations or the individuals behind it because a lot of them are led by soft guys, prior active duty dudes that see a whole generation of guys that are feeling like they don't have the understanding or foundational knowledge of what it means to be a man. They didn't
mhm,
have that trial and tribulation that we go through in the military. So they feel like, I'm indoctrinated. I don't have that. But somebody comes in and says, "Hey, I'll sell you a program. I'll take you through a pipeline that's just like Buds or just like the Q course. And
mhm.
then you'll be a man." That's not the reality. Everything you need, everything that you're looking for is right in here. You just have to be able to understand that there's a lot of shame and guilt, and you don't need somebody to sell you a plan that's 10 grand, 20 grand, or 30 grand to make you a man. No, it takes deep work. It takes the ability to understand, like, oh, okay, like I can define this. I can go through something. I can volunteer. I can be part of my community. I can learn things that are inherently important to be a man. I can learn emotional intelligence. Those things, man. Like that's a reality. Like I will never ever ever tell somebody that in order to be a man, you need to go to the Q course and become a Green Beret. No, like it was important for me. Like I will never ever talk down that experience. It gave me so much. It gave me my life. It gave me my my ability to understand how strong and powerful I really was. And I was just a young kid that needed that. But the reality is, I'm no better than some guy that went to college, has a family, and started his own business. We just went different approaches to life. And more men need to hear that. It's okay if you didn't go to the SEAL selection or join the military. It doesn't make you weaker. It doesn't make you any less of a man. Like instead of paying people to put you through a boot camp, go take jujitsu. Learn how to hunt. Go out and fish. Be in the outdoors. Those are simple things you can do. But yeah, man, like that is such a powerful thing that hurts us for so long if we don't address it.
Yeah, it's huge. I talked to a team guy the other couple weeks ago. He's potentially getting divorced, and he told me that dude, he's contemplating suicide, bro. He's gonna shoot himself, and he
Ah,
didn't, and he's alive. But it was one of those things where I'm like, dude, you hear about it from other guys who are on the teams, because I have friends who are on various teams, and they're so humble, bro. And they always say like,
yeah,
dude, getting pinned, whatever it is, getting your trident or getting your beret, it doesn't complete you. You know, you are the guy that, and in recovery, they say that wherever you go,
Yeah.
there you are. You can't buy a ticket and
Yes,
escape
John
your addiction.
Kabat-Zinn.
Yeah, you can't just escape yourself, you know, even if you
Yeah.
get whatever it is. And so you hear about these amazing service members and just amazing people hurting inside, and it's about external versus internal validation. And one of my mentors has a friend who, well, he died. His not my mentor, but his friend. He had a Bentley mansion. Went to a golf course in the middle of the night, shot himself in the head. And my
Uh,
buddy got a call from him about a month before he committed suicide. My mentor got a call from his buddy, and that guy just called and said, "Hey, I just wanted to see how things are going." Very superficial conversation, but my mentor was kind of like, "That was weird. Like this guy hasn't talked to me in years." He gave me a phone call. It was very like you know not deep. And then a few weeks after that call, he another friend hit him up. It's like, "Hey, did you hear what happened to so and so?" And he shot himself. And my
mm,
mentor was like blown away because this dude was like cream of the crop when it comes to money, right? Rich dude.
yeah.
And he shot himself in the head. And it begs the question of what was that dude hurting from? He wasn't broke. He had a family. He had all this stuff, but there was something inside of him that was broken, right? It sucks because we'll never know. But when people take their lives, you know, when soldiers that I knew, you know, when we heard about suicides and stuff in the army and the active duty world, it was pretty high, especially recently.
Yeah.
It, you know, you just wonder like, what conversation could we have had with that guy? What was going on? Like, what wasn't being said? Because the stuff that's unspoken, that's what gets lethal. You know how they say like when soldiers are loud and complaining, everything's good. It's when they go
Yeah.
quiet, right?
Yep.
So yeah, it's just something to think about, man. Our
Dude,
internal world's
it's
heavy. It's complex.
that's why I always tell people, like, one of the main things that I did once I started getting better was start my peer-to-peer support group. Every Sunday night, come in, and we started Thursdays. Just log in, talk, share. If you're successful with some treatment modality, share it. If you're struggling, share it. If you need access to resources, fuck, we'll sit down, we'll plug and play, we'll figure out how to get you help. But it's that connection period, that connection factor. That's what really matters. When you're sitting down and holding space for others, even if it's just a text thread, take your
Mm.
top 3 best friends, put them on a text thread every morning. Simply say, "Hey, good morning. I love you." Like, you went to combat with these dudes, or you went through something that was
It's
hard. You went
love,
through
bro. That
something
is
with these
love.
people. That's love.
Yep.
There's nothing weird about saying that. Let them know that. We all get in those periods. I get there too. Every single one of us, veterans, service members, first responders. There are mornings we wake up and it just sucks. It just sucks. It's a little tougher that day. Maybe you have that little thing in your mind that says, "Hey, let's isolate today."
Mhm.
But when you get that text in the morning, when you get that fucking text, and not a meme, not an Instagram thing, no, send the fucking text. Send that text that says, "I fucking
Yeah.
love you. I can't wait to fucking talk to you, bro. I fucking miss you." Holy shit. The endorphins kick in. Like, all right, these are my dudes.
Yeah.
This is my tribe.
Yeah.
Do it every single fucking morning. You did in firefights. You were able to fucking sit down in freezing cold mountains of Afghanistan,
Mm.
in the fucking shitty, hot fucking deserts, in shitty training scenarios. You've been there for each other. Take that one moment every single morning and text your friends. Text the people that you've been through the worst situations on earth. Just send them a simple text. You do it every morning. Do it every morning. I'm telling you, you don't know when that message is going to be needed the most. Because I tell you, I've been there. I've seen it. I've experienced it.
Mm.
And I've shared it. I'm like, "Hey, man, thank you for fucking texting me. I fucking really needed that today." Or when they reach out to you and say, "Hey, brother, thank you for sending that. I was in a world of hurt. You got me in a better place." And then that can be the mechanism to get somebody to talk finally. So yeah,
Yeah,
don't
man.
sleep on text messaging.
Yeah, it's huge. I was just smiling because there's a couple buddies of mine. They were So the guys that I made friends with, because I joined old, they were older dudes in the pipeline as I was going through to become an officer, and they were prior guys, so they're
Yeah.
Mustangs, like prior enlisted. These guys have been to war and done stuff. And they're always the quietest dudes in the room. Everyone else is like, no, I want to be the alpha, like just puppies, like humping legs. And these guys are just quiet. I'm like, hey, dude, I gotta hang out with you, man. You make me feel normal. And then come to find out, there's the most badass guys in the room, always humble and quiet. But yeah, dude, one of them, it was cool, man, because I'll get a text from him or we'll call each other, and there's always that special feeling when you hear a brother say that, like, "Hey, man,
Yeah.
love you, buddy." And I'm just like, I love these dudes, and
Yeah.
it's yeah, it's just special. It's so hard to comprehend, and drinking doesn't get you that.
No,
Partying
no,
till
no.
4 a.m. with friends doesn't get you that. But when you're in the field and things suck and it's miserable and you're, pulling security on like frozen topsoil as you're just like your balls are just ice cubes and you're next to your buddy, like, why did we sign this contract again? And then,
Shared struggle.
it's real. And I love these guys, man. I really do. They warm my heart, and they push me to be more physical than I've ever been. And yeah,
Hmm.
it's cool stuff, dude. And yeah, man, any conversation we could have that helps them is so rewarding because these guys are worth it, and yeah, it's cool.
Absolutely. Now, before you run out of time, I do want to talk to you about your book.
Uh,
So tell us a little more about the book and where can we get it?
yeah, so just you can go to my website, Combat Psych, and then like .com, combatpsych.com. I just finished the audiobook version of it too, which 9.5 hours of my raspy voice, but Um, it sucks recording that thing. It was rough, but it's called Backpack to Rucksack, and the subtitle is Insight into Leadership and Resilience by Military Experts. And I'm not the military expert in the book. I just simply curated advice from dudes that gave me great advice before I joined. So there's all different branches are in the book, and enlisted and officer. So there's several SEALs, a Green Beret officer is a buddy of mine, a MARSOC officer is a buddy of mine, some pilots, rescue swimmers, EODs, just normal like IT guy in the Navy who's enlisted, just a bunch of friends who came alongside me as I left the party scene and just started dropping nuggets of wisdom on what it means to be a leader, what it means to just love the people next to you and treat them, with dignity and respect and stuff. So uh, I I was after I got out of the army, I was just kind of like struggling with some stuff. Missed my soldiers a lot. I missed my platoon. And I'm still in touch with first platoon. I was just calling a soldier talk to me this morning from my platoon. Good dude. And I wrote this book as kind of a meditation on what optimal leadership looks like, and then I wanted to apply neurophysiology to it, like let's
Nice.
look at the brain. So I drop in some peer-reviewed publications throughout the book, um, because I didn't want to be accused of being overly sensitive because that's kind of who I am. It's
Yeah.
just the way I'm built. And I don't like hearing that from people who use that as an excuse to not be healthy. And
Yeah.
so I was like, is there really neurocircuitry behind being nice, behind being kind, behind being humble? And again, going back, I always reflected on these black belts in jujitsu. Like, why is it that they're so nice on the mats? Like, when a black belt grabs you, they're not grabbing you like to break a bone. They're grabbing you very gently, to where you think they're toying with you. And then they
Yeah.
rip their move and then execute, and then you're blacking out, right? And
Yeah.
so, what is it neurophysiologically about them that helps them stay calm and stay grounded and do all that? And so, anyway, so yeah, this book is like a very long-winded, like I am, like almost 400-page book on caveats of different examples from my military time and from dudes in my life who inspired me through what they've done in the military too.
Absolutely. It's far greater to express kindness than allow yourself to go into rage and anger. There's far more control. And I luckily understood that, or at least a concept of that, in my military career as I got older and wiser. But I didn't fully understand it until I got to the other side of being healthier. There's a greater power to being kind. The guy that yells and screams and is inflammatory and reactive rather than responsive, there's no strength in that. There's literally no strength. He is
Right.
ruled by emotion, and he's just launching into his anger. It doesn't make you any better of a tactician. In fact, that's an easily thing to exploit. I know you're going to lose your shit. I'm going to allow you to do that because in the middle of you being upregulated and going off in your rant, like you're fucking vulnerable. Like, that's a reality. It's far greater tool to be kind and be responsive, and understanding that is something that is a powerful thing. And more individuals need to learn that before they go into the military so they can have that successful career. But it's men like you and others, and myself included, that are having these talks to be able to promote that. That's true strength.
Mhm.
Understanding the importance of emotional intelligence and understanding that I don't have to react. I don't
I
have
mean,
to
we've all been
react.
teenagers, bro. We all know what it's like when our parents freak out. As a platoon leader, if I freak out on my Joes, they're
Yeah.
gonna look at me like, "All right, sir, you lose your mind." Like they're gonna love that. You know how
And
they
your
are.
power base is gone. They're not going to respect
all
you.
all the credibility's gone. I'm like, I'm the alpha. Like I've never done
Yeah.
this, but I'm saying I've seen officers do it. Like, do you see my
Yeah.
rank? Do you see my rank? And all the enlisted guys are like, I know what you think you are, but
Yeah.
you're not our leader, you know?
You're not dog.
And it's because it's primal, it's visceral.
Yeah.
You feel that in your gut. Authenticity and somebody who's present and grounded, but bro, you feel it. And I can
Yeah.
talk about the physiology of the brain, but we have receptors to that in our minds that perceive that, and you can't fake it. You can't come in the
No.
room and say like you're gonna respect me because I'm this. It's like, bro, print out your resume and give it to all of us, and we'll sure, sir, we'll salute the resume. But if you think we're gonna actually like, follow you into whatever, it's like, no, dude. Like
Yeah.
you march that way, we'll be over here chilling.
Yeah.
So that's why I love the soldiers, man, because they're honest, dude. They're real, and I respect them for that. There's no way to pull the wool over their eyes, bro. They see everything. They
Yeah.
call it living in the fishbowl, and so you know what I mean? If whatever
Yeah.
was going on in my mind, they'd see it. And it held me accountable, and they're real. They're not trying to sugarcoat stuff. And that's why soldiers they're gold, bro. They're treasure. It's
Yeah.
awesome.
Absolutely. There's no greater reward than becoming a leader. And it's something that I
Mm.
I can't even describe. The greatest thing that you can hang your hat on at the end of the day is understanding and knowing that, like, okay, like I did a great job at being part of a team. And yeah, like I had that responsibility of being a leader within that organization. Dan, thank you so much for being here today, bro. I really appreciate your time. Again, what's the name of the book?
Backpack to rucksack.
Backpack to Rucksack. And you can get it on Dan Joseph's website, which is
So it's combatpsych.com. It's also available on Amazon, but if you go to the website, you can preview it. So try before you buy. I don't want you to waste your money.
we'll have it featured on the debrief. Next edition is coming out in a couple days, so I better hurry up and publish that. So check it out there, or we'll pin it to one of our social media posts. But Dan, thanks again for being here, brother. Continue your endeavors, continue rolling, and I hope to have you here again. Talk about your next endeavors. Till next
Thanks,
time,
bro.
take care.
Appreciate it.